A new day, a new tariff, and this time it includes lumber. How are you looking at the expanding list of tariffs?
Well, when the executive order first came into Canada very recently, it included 25% across the board on everything, including, everything, and then 10% on energy. What we're pleased about is to be able to work with the American administration to get a 30-day pause on that, and while at the same time working with the American administration. We've been very clear. Tariffs are expensive for America. They make no sense. When 70% of what I export into the United States takes, adds value to it, and then helps them be more competitive with their products. Adding a tariff just simply makes it more expensive for Americans. Adding tariffs to Canadian exports simply means that it's going to cost Americans more at the grocery store. It's going to cost Americans more at the pumps. So it makes no sense. We will continue to reiterate that message. We've been very clear. We will not. We don't want to be here. We don't want to initiate anything. But should there be punishing tariffs on Canadian and on Canada, we will respond accordingly. But in the meantime, we are having conversations with the Americans, as we do. When you have a trading partner like the one between Canada and the United States, where Canada, it's our largest trading partner, but we're pretty important to the Americans as well. When I count 36 American states as my top customers, I sell more to them, to those 36 states, than China, than Japan, than the United Kingdom and France combined. So we need to work on this together.
That 30-day pause, you're in talks right now. How confident are you that can be extended, that will be extended?
We are working very hard on that, myself, the Prime Minister, my cabinet colleagues. This is a really intentional effort to work with the administration. One of the things that the American administration, including the President, have raised concerns about is how we can collaborate and do more on border to make sure that at the border we are indeed working more together. Despite Canada only having less than 1% of fentanyl going into America, it too is just as a concern for Canadians. So collaborating together to make sure that we are doing more on our border is what we are doing, and we're confident that that work is not only making progress, but that we're doing that with the Americans, and this is the testament of the Canadian-American relationship as well, the ability to talk through and work through what are sometimes really tough issues. So we're committed to doing that on our end.
You talked about how Canada exports more to the U.S. than any other country. We're talking about almost 80% of your exports going to the U.S. Despite a trade agreement with the likes of the EU, why has it been so difficult for Canada to diversify its trade?
Well, I always say as the trade minister, negotiating trade agreements are about, it's like building a bridge. But what you want is you need your businesses to walk across that bridge. And I think businesses really are reflecting on the importance of diversification. I think that the meaning of diversification has a greater significance. It's why I'm here in Singapore. I just led a trade mission to Australia. Over 200 Canadians that are here looking to pursue opportunities in this market. Here in the Indo-Pacific and in Singapore, who's a partner in the CPTPP, we have been doing business and have seen our trade increase by over 20% since it's coming in force into 2018. I've taken hundreds and hundreds of businesses on trade missions, whether it is here in Singapore or to Japan or to Korea or to Malaysia, to Indonesia. We just wrapped up a free trade agreement with Indonesia. But I think that what the Canadian government has been doing is really building out that deliberate infrastructure to help Canadian companies look at markets like these ones. This is a really important place for Canada. We launched our Indo-Pacific strategy at the end of 2022, backed by a $2.3 billion investment over 5 years to do exactly that. Grow our businesses, create those partnerships. Yesterday here in Singapore, I announced $7.3 billion to build a Canadian trade gateway for nuclear energy. This is really important because in the region, in all of these discussions I've had with partners, energy security is an issue. These economies are growing, and they want to be able to grow with reliable energy in order to grow their businesses, to power their cities and their communities. So we want to be a part of that solution. So these are the kinds of things that we're doing as a government, but we're doing it in partnership with businesses. And I would say, and I keep saying to businesses, you've got to show up, you've got to be here, do these transactions, because they actually will be great for our trading partners as well as for us.
Minister, we keep getting headlines from Trump, and just today we heard from how he is willing to perhaps rethink that trade deal with China. He says it is a possibility for a new trade agreement with China. It does seem he is approaching China in a very conciliatory way. Instead of 60% tariffs, it's 10% tariffs, whereas when it comes to a trading partner like Canada, he was willing to go full force with 25%. Is there a sense, perhaps, that Trump is treating China in a better way than he is treating Canada?
Well, I can't speak for the president, for President Trump, but what I would say for Canada is that, Canada, has everything it needs to be successful in today's global economy and into the future. The United States is our largest trading partner. We will continue to work with the United States because it's good for Americans. I mean, millions and millions of jobs are dependent on America's trade with Canada. The inputs that we send to the United States actually create and have built these resilient supply chains that are good, that are good for businesses, that are good for communities. I think what we need to keep doing is to do this work. But Canada also has, through its current trade networks, access to 65% of the world's economy through trade agreements, like with the European Union. Here, through the CPTPP, with countries like Singapore and Malaysia and Australia and New Zealand and Vietnam and so forth. But also, I'm at the negotiating table with ASEAN as a bloc. I've just concluded an agreement with Indonesia, really excellent trade agreement there. Launched exploratory dialogues with Philippines. So I think the work we need to do and we need to keep doing is make sure that we continue to strengthen North America on the one hand, but also pursue these opportunities. And in Canada, I often say to people, we're the best traders because around the world, because we come from around the world. So these deep people-to-people ties, I think, is also an advantage.
Is there a need for you to have a new trade strategy under the Trump administration? I mean, concessions don't work. We saw that with India, and tit for tat is not working either. Is there a way of relooking at your trade strategy?
Well, let's remember that the agreement we have today with the United States, which we renegotiated with the United States, was actually done by President Trump, and he touted this to be an excellent agreement. It took us time to do that, and there were issues that we had to work through, but we did work through them. We negotiated across the table, and in President Trump's trade memoranda that he issued to the Commerce Secretary and to the USTR was to take a look at the range of trade agreements that the United States has with the world, including in Canada, and including the work that the work that is done between Canada, U.S., and Mexico. I'm looking forward to to understanding what that analysis will come forward with. But ultimately, I think that at the end of the day, it's about finding the win and the synergies that make America strong, the synergies that make Canada strong, the synergies that make North America strong, and I think that's the approach we've taken. We're going to have to take that approach and then adapt as we need.
Might the win come from a multilateral response instead of Canada just responding on its own? Should there be, a global response led by perhaps Canada, Asia, or even Europe? Should there be a multilateral approach to responding to Trump's tariffs?
Well, I've certainly, been talking to my colleagues around the globe, particularly those who we have trade agreements with and those partners who really stand up for the rules-based trading system. I was in Europe just a little over, I'm losing track of time, I think it's a little over a week or maybe 2 weeks ago. I was at the World Trade Organization. I'm here, of course, in Singapore, our CPTPP partner. I was just in Australia, and I'm on my way to Brunei. And I think the one thing that is consistent with all of us, because in response to our businesses and the investors, they are looking for governments and for those of us who have negotiated these agreements to provide the predictability that they need. So everyone agrees that standing up for a rules-based international order, particularly around trade, is something that we are going to need to work on together. Each country will do what they will do with respect to unique responses, but I do think that there is agreement that the rules-based international order, particularly around rules-based trade, is something that we must stand up for and continue to work very hard at defending.
With Trump reshaping the global trade book, I'm just wondering, from Canada's perspective, is China now a more important trading partner? Is India now a more important trading partner?
Well, our Indo-Pacific strategy had, set out, and this is now well over, at the end of 2022, we set out a strategy that envisages the importance of this region in particular, that also includes how Canada would work with China. And there, we refer to it in the strategy as the 4 Cs. There will be opportunities where we should absolutely be collaborating together. You think about climate change and how we can build out solutions, including economic solutions that actually will fight climate change. There will be issues where we're going to have to challenge China, because the values that are important to Canadians are such that we need to do that. We can also compete. I mean, take a look at AI. Take a look at what Canada is doing in the critical mineral space. Take a look at what Canada is doing around the battery ecosystem with respect to batteries around for electric vehicles, and how we're attracting investments from around the globe to do this in Canada. So we can certainly compete, and then we need to coexist. So the approach that we have taken in the Indo-Pacific strategy, I think, still holds today.